All right. Salakia. Shalom, Israel. Where the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander General Yohana. We're not affiliated with any other Israelite group nor any other Christian organization. So now tonight's class is the Lashawan Qadash class. I want everyone to pay very close attention, all right? This is the Hebrew, all right? The Lashawan Qadash meaning the holy tongue. This is the language of our forefathers. This is the language of our ancestors. So what we want to do is to pay very close attention to these lessons, all right? So of course we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. Well, not yesterday. So like last week on Friday, we're going to continue going through different conjugations. If anyone has any questions on certain words they would like to know, or study tactics, or etc., just ask your questions into the live chat. But this is where you want to put um, practical things into use. All right. When it comes to the Hebrew, you're just gonna have to do it over and over and over again. You want to practice it. You want to rehearse it. You're not going to get better at the Hebrew if you don't practice and rehearse it. All right. You have to practice the Hebrew. You have to constantly and consistently read the Hebrew. You do not want to take not knowing the Hebrew lightly, or knowing the Hebrew lightly. Salakia. You want to pay very close attention to that indeed, all right? You definitely want to do that. So let's take that. So let's get into the alphabet, all right? Also, don't forget to put your name, city, and state. Don't forget to check in and sign in, all right? So the first one you got is your ah, all right? This is the alphabet. The alphabet is very important. When learning and studying the Lashawan Qadash in our language, the alphabet is important. The very same way our letters are pronounced, they're going to be pronounced the same way when you're creating the words and you're spelling out words and saying these words. It's the very same sound. All right. The Hebrew is a consonant language, meaning has a similar sound. And the sound is like an ah sound. All right. Just like what you see on the board right now. All right. On the screen, you have your ah. You have your ah in the Assyrian, then you have your ah in the ancient, which is your ah. Next is you have your ba. You have your ba in the Assyrian, and you have your ba in the ancient. Next you have your ga. You have your ga in the Assyrian, and you have your ga in the ancient. Next you have your da. You have your da in the Assyrian, and you have your da in the ancient. Next you have your ha. You have your ha in the Assyrian, and you have your ha in the ancient. You have your wa. You have your wa in the Syrian, and you have your wa in the ancient. Next is your za. You have your za in the Syrian, and you have your za in the ancient. Salakia. Next, you have your cha. You have your cha in the Syrian, then you have your cha in the ancient. Now remember, it's your cha, your cha. You never want to forget. You're almost like you want to cough up a loogie, like your cha. You're scratching the back of your throat. Your cha, your cha. You don't want to pronounce it any other way. Do not pronounce your cha as your ka. All right, because we already have a letter. We already have the letter ka. So your cha. Next, you have your ta. You have your ta in the Syrian, and you have your ta in the ancient. Next, you have your ya. You have your ya in the Syrian, and you have your ya in the ancient. Next is you have your ka. You have your ka in the Syrian, you have your ka in the ancient. Next you have your la. We go back real quick, Slaki. For anyone noticing that arrow, right? And you read underneath that arrow, it says found at the end of a word, right? This is the ka in the Syrian that you're going to see that's at the end of a word. You're not going to see anything, you're not going to see this anywhere else but at the end of a word. Like this is how you know in the Syrian that the letter ends with the letter ka because it's going to look like this. It's not going to look like this, but it's going to look like this. So make sure you pay attention to that. All right, these are the ka. This is the letter ka, and this is what you're going to see at the end of a word. All right. The next letter we got is your la. All right. You got your la in the Syrian, and you got your la in the ancient. This is your la. Next is you have your ma. You have your ma in the Syrian, then you have your ma in the ancient. Same concept with the ka. This is the ma that you'll see at the end of a word. Make sure everyone is practicing their Assyrian as well. All right. Make sure you're practicing your Assyrian. You're going to see that Assyrian a lot more often than you think. Next you have is your na. You have your na in the Syrian, then you have your na in the ancient. Next is your sa. You have your sa in the Syrian, then you have your sa in the ancient. You have your I, the letter I. You have your I in the Syrian, then you have your I in the ancient. Now remember, all right, this letter I literally comes from your I. If you look in the ancient, right, you see how it's circular because that came from your actual eye, like your eyes being circular. Now, to be exact, all right, if to be exact, at one point in time, our language was pictographic, meaning we actually had actual pictures representing our letters. Think hieroglyphics on those Egyptian walls, something similar to that. A lot of ancient languages were pictographic before it became characteristic. All right. So the letter I, right? Literally, the picture was your eye. All right. So this is why the letter is called I. Literally comes from your eye, from the word ayan, ayan in the Hebrew meaning I, ayan in the Hebrew meaning I. This is the letter pa. You have your pa in the Assyrian, then you have your pa in the ancient. Next is your taza. You have your taza in the Assyrian, then you have your taza in the ancient. This is your qua. You have your qua in the Syrian, and you have your qua in the ancient. Next is your ra. You have your ra in the Syrian, then you have your ra in the ancient. Next is you have your sha. You have your sha in the Syrian, then you have your sha in the ancient. Next is you have your tha. You have your tha in the Assyrian, and you have your tha in the ancient. Khan. All right, now, if anybody has any questions, all right, if you need to know what a word means or you need to know something, whatever the case may be, just let me know and I'll be able to answer your questions. But we're going to leave off where we left off. All right, where we left off is we're going to be dealing with verb conjugations. All right, so I'll go back here. All right, we left off using the word katab, meaning to write. All right, and so we're going to leave off here. Before we do that, give me Salaki, just give me one moment. All right, so Lakia. All right, so now, so we're going to get Malak. Y'all see it right here. Malak meaning to reign. Anybody know what else Malak can mean? What else does can Malak mean? If Malak also means rain, what else can Malak mean? Does anybody remember the word Malak? What else can Malak mean as well? If you guys are aware, go ahead and try to answer. All right, just give me a second, just erasing this. You guys can put your answers if not already, if you guys remember what Malak means. All right. And give Trooper Yagadar a hand. King. Malak can also mean king. So in our language, at times, Salaki, if I could, all right, in our language, in most times, you get our verbs and nouns can be interchangeable. So Malak can be used as a verb. At the same time, Malak can also be used as a noun. Malak as a noun means king. Malak as a verb means reign. You can see how they're very similar to each other, right? Of course, a king reigns over something. A king is in charge of something. It rules over something, right? A king rules or reigns over something. So the word malak as a noun can be used as king because a king rules and a king reigns. The verb, all right, malak means to reign. You guys see how our verbs and nouns are interchangeable? Malak isn't the only word you can do that with. There's plenty of other words that are nouns and verbs. They're interchangeable with each other. All right, Malak is one of them out of the many that there are. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Like Um, Barak. Barak can be a name, right? But Barak can also mean with a ka at the end, can also mean blessed. You can use them and they're interchangeable with each other. All right. But Khan. So hopefully, get the under the understanding of what it is. All right. So let's get Malak on the board. I was almost about to do a transliteration. All right. So you got Malak. All right. And so now because we're working on conjugations, right? Remember, conjugations meaning that there's going to be a change in the verb, all right, or the change in the word itself. So pay very close attention to that. There's going to be a change. All right, there's going to be a change, meaning malak isn't just going to stay malak, at least not all the time. All right, we accounted that last week in the past tense, I believe, where the verb did not change at all, but it was still counted as a conjugation, meaning there was a change in the verb. All right. There may not always be physical changes to let you know that there's a conjugation. All right. And so remember that all conjugations, do not forget that all conjugations are based off of the subject pronoun. You want to understand and know that if you do not know the subject pronoun, you're not going to know how to conjugate the verb. So consistently and constantly keep in mind, all right? Constantly keep in mind everything is based off of your subject pronoun. Everything is based off of your subject pronoun. If you don't know the subject pronoun, then you're not going to know how to conjugate the verb. Think subject as in you need to know who it is. You need to know the subject. It gives you more information. All right. It gives you the information required and needed to know what's going on, what's being said, and how to proceed. And so the subject pronoun we're going to be using in this week going to be haya, which means she. I don't like when it does that. So haya, which means she. So now let's see. So let's start with the present tense. Excuse me. I believe we're going to make it into red. Let's get into Hebrew. Actually, right. So you have hayya. All right. So I wrote hayya in the red, right? The reason why hayya is going to be in red, so when I write the conjugated form of malak, you know where the conjugation is and where the change is. Make sure you guys are taking note of where the change is going to be. All right. Keep in mind and know where the change is going to be. Does anybody want to give it a shot before I write it? Does anybody know how to conjugate malak based off of the subject pronoun hayya? Anybody want to give it a shot before I write it down? Not a ya. It's not going to be a ya, but you're close. It's not going to be a ya between the first and second letter. Give it one more shot. And because hayya is feminine, something does go at the end of it too as well. All right. Keep it. Does anybody also remember how to feminize a word or to make it feminine, singular? Think about that as well, and that'll be your answer. Not a ha, not a ha, la ah, but you're close. I see where you're getting with it, but you're close. So you put a. It's always a wa. It's always a wa between the first and second letter. There's always a wa between the first and second letter. All right. But because she is feminine, you put a ha at the end of it as well. So this is an example. Now, of course, there's not much raining a sister is going to do. All right. So of course you may not be using this in an actual sentence at times, at least not seriously. All right. But of course, for class purposes, we want to know how to conjugate in the present, past, and future based on the subject pronoun she, which is haya in the Hebrew. All right. And so she reigns. It would be haya mawalaka. All right. Salakia. That's not what I have. I have mawala. I said mawalaka, but I didn't spell it. I didn't spell it. Salakia. I just caught that. Salakia about that, y'all. Salakia. All right, there we go. And let me fix it here as well. Let's see. Oh, okay. Mawalaka. There we go. So mawalaka. Haya'a mawalaka. Salakia about that, y'all. So and Chuba Yagadar, give Chuba Yagadar a hand, and that is correct. Yes. So he reign would be just Mawalak. So it would be Hawa Mawalak. Just Mawalak. That is true. That is correct. That's 100% correct. 1 second. But that is correct. All right, Salaki. Okay, so remember, Chuba Yagadar, you're correct. It's Mawalak. But okay, but since this is in the feminine, it's talking about she, it's Hayab Mawalaka. All right, Hayab Mawalaka. So now let's get, so that was the present tense. Now we're going to get it into the past tense. We're going to get it in the past tense. All right. All right. Remember, if anybody has any questions, always put your questions into the live chat. All right, here we go. All right, so here we go. So you have, this is going to be in the past tense. So Malak, meaning to reign. Now, meaning to reign, meaning to be in charge or to rule over something or whatever the case may be. All right. It's in some, doesn't always have to be in a position of power, but usually the word reign meaning to be in charge or to be in power of something, right? To be in charge of something. So we have the subject pronoun haya, right? Haya, which means she in the Hebrew. Now remember, because she is a subject pronoun, but it's a feminine pronoun, all right? Because um, pronouns matter to the Lord, all right? In our language, pronouns matter. Unlike America, choosing the different pronouns they want to call each other, it's whatever. We're not going to get into that topic or subject. But in our language, it matters who you're talking to, all right. You want to make sure if you're addressing a he, you're addressing the he properly. If you're addressing a she, you address the she properly. All right, because all of our pronouns in our language, if you want to do verb conjugations, just like in Spanish, right? When you're conjugating verbs, it's based off of the pronoun that you use. Okay, so you have to be very aware of those things. All right, and so haya is she, and so because it's a feminine pronoun, the verb itself, malak, you have to put a ha at the end of it. That's why it's in red at the end of malak, and so it's malaka, malaka. All right, and so I didn't change this. Because it's the past tense, give me 1 second. Because it's the past tense, it would mean rain. It would mean rain. Sometimes that can get very annoying. Very annoying. All these text boxes being made, it's almost like it's impossible. They got a sweet spot. It's almost all right. So, um, how did it get there? Don't ask me. Okay. All right. So you have Malaka, meaning she reigned, because this is in the past tense. She reigned. So yeah, Haya Malaka is how you would say she reigned. And of course, you could say she reigned over anything. It could be whatever you want in this case. All right. Now remember, you can also substitute the verb. All right. You can substitute the actual verb itself for any other verb as well. All right. It doesn't really matter what verb you use to conjugate. Just know whatever verb you have and you're conjugating it in the past tense based off of the subject pronoun haya. You want to make sure you understand that you put a ha at the end of that verb. All right. You put a ha at the end of that verb. All right. Give y'all time to take that down. All right, Salaki. So now that's Malachi. Hayya Malachi. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get it in the future tense, and we're going to stop there. So I'm gonna get rid of the past tense. Does anybody want to give it a shot on how to conjugate it in the future tense? You can give it a shot if you would like. I know Chuba Yagadar, he even it sounds like Chuba Yagadar, you sound like you be studying the Hebrew. Most High in Christ. That's the wild. It looks like you be studying the Hebrew, which is really good. If you truly want to learn the Bible, you want to know what language it's written in and understand the language that it's written in. There's a lot of stuff that our people do not know because they just don't know the language that the Bible is written in. Before the Bible was written in English, it was written in Hebrew first. Everything was translated from out of the Hebrew. Even if you say it was translated or written in Greek or Latin, and which is true, the Bible has been written in Greek and Latin too as well, but it was written in Hebrew first because the people of the Bible are the Hebrews, the Israelites, the Jews. All right. So you guys want to keep that in mind. So if I want to conjugate malak in the future tense, okay, so past tense, so like I just seen your question. So past tense for he reigned would stay the same, right? Right, exactly. So hawa malak, that is correct. So you wouldn't have to do anything to it. You would just say malak. That is correct. You would just say malak. That's it. Hawa malak. He reigned. You can even say ya malak. Same thing. Yamalak or Hawa Malak, meaning he reigned in the past tense. Hopefully that answers your question, Truba Yagadar, Most High in Christ, Khan. So it's the same. It's exactly how you would do it. All right. And that's the past tense. Usually, when it comes to conjugations, right, it's all about studying. It's all about practicing. It's about rehearsing. The Bible says to rehearse the righteous acts. So you want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And you want to take that concept with everything that you do. All right. You want to get better at practicing, practice at speaking, practice at thinking, practice at writing. You want to rehearse the righteous acts. All right. Rehearse it. Do it over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. You want to take that same concept, do it with the Hebrew, and also do it with your everyday life. All right. People don't become as perfect and great as they are, right? Just by doing nothing or making excuses why they can't do it a certain way. The UPK, there's no excuses back here. We don't make excuses for nothing. We take it on the chin, we muscle up, and we do it. And we do it. And do it. And do it. And rehearse it over and over and over again. And that's the spirit of Christ. You understand? Does everybody understand that? Let me know if I lost anybody. All right. We're going to get the future tense. So after a while, what should begin to happen for as knowing the language? I noticed the views on language not too popular, right? So what you want to do is so once you start knowing the language out, what you want to do is just keep practicing it. There's other brothers and sisters that know how to speak this language fluently. All right. So if you need someone like to practice with, to create sentences with, because you're in Virginia, I'm in Virginia too, right? Eventually, right, we're going to be able to have conversations with each other in Hebrew. All right. And we're going to be using the language with each other a lot more than you think. All right. And so you want to be able to get fluent enough to be able to structure sentences or even use, even if you're mixing English and Hebrew together, that's fine too. That's definitely okay that's fine. But what you want to do is you just want to expound your vocabulary in the Hebrew and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. All right. So, and also to answer your question further, what's going to begin to happen is you're going to start saying Hebrew without even realizing that you're speaking Hebrew. Sometimes I'll be at work, I'll say Salakia instead of saying excuse me or sorry, and no one knows what the hell I'm talking about. Sometimes I'll tell my woman the water or a yonder bar, and she has no idea what I'm talking about. So I say thank you to her, or I say you're welcome to her, or I say I apologize or sorry to her instead. So that's what happens when you speak. Of course, more than one language, you start mixing them the two and start talking to each other with it. So that's exactly what we do. Everybody understand? Most High in Christ. All right, Most High in Christ. I was able to answer your question. So let's get like All right. So now what we have on the screen is the future tense. All right, the future tense. And so now what you would do in this case, in the future tense, you would put a tha. All right, you'll put a tha in front of the verb. Put a tha in front of the verb, and it'll be thamalak. Haya'a thamalak. So it'll be thamalak, and it will be will reign. So haya'a thamalak, meaning she will reign. Right? She will reign. So haya'a thamalak. She will reign. Haya'a thamalak. You put a tha in front of the malak. All right. And that's how you conjugate. Now remember, the conjugation is in red. All right. So you guys know what is to be conjugated. All right. You need to know what needs to be conjugated. All right. So haya samalak. Haya samalak. So haya samalak. All right. Any questions? So if you study, you will begin to read it and speak it because same rules apply to making sentences, just replacing the verb, which we should learn to apply rules. Okay, yes, in a way, yes. So what we're learning here is the grammar. All right. So when you structure sentences in the English, it's not necessarily the same in Hebrew. All right. So you just don't want to pick words out and then start placing them in place. That's not necessarily how it works. So the more you come to class and the more you just what you want to do is learn how. So what you want to do is study the alphabet. Once you study the alphabet, you get the sounds of the Hebrew, which I'm sure you guys are already there. For young man Kenny, I know that you're there with knowing how to pronounce and sound out the alphabet. And so now what you want to practice is knowing the difference between the Assyrian and the ancient. So practice the Assyrian because most of our records are written in the Assyrian script. And just practice reading the Hebrew. Go into Genesis and just do your best. Just read it. Just read it. And if you have any questions on what a word may be, you can ask in class. Like, oh, I came across this word in Hebrew. How do you pronounce it the right way? You can do things like that. All right. And then eventually, what you want to do is while you're coming to these classes and learning how to structure sentences and how to do verb conjugations, etc., right? Then you'll start be able to structure sentences a lot better and knowing the small grammar, the grammar that's involved when making sentences. All right. Over time, that will happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but over time, give it like 6 or 7 months if you're serious and you just study Hebrew every single day, like I did, you'll be able to within 6 to 7 months, you'll be good. You'll be pretty decent, and then after that, you'll just start. It'll just be a trickle effect, Doc. I promise you. All right. What I did was for first 6 7 months, I did nothing but Hebrew, nothing but Hebrew. That was that was it. The first class that I took on was the Hebrew. I've been teaching the Hebrew since 2018. All right, so I've been teaching that class since 2018. So, or maybe 17. I'm gonna say 2018 for sure. All right, and so the more you study it out, the better. The better. Con. Any other questions? Con. All right. So with that, Israel, I say shalom. Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai broke a thumb to the brothers. And shalom Yahweh Shamar Alathun Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai to the sisters. All right. Shalom.